Hey, good morning, wood butchers. Working on that outfeed table slash assembly table slash MFT. So I have a whole bunch of this old pallet scrap oak sort of milled up now. It's about the same size. I'm going to finger joint all the ends, using the technique I showed in the last video. And we're going to get it all nicely set up together. I thought I had milled these all equal, but they're a little floppy, a little fuzzy, and they're a little wavy now that I've cut them. So I guess some internal stresses in the wood have changed. These are all knotty and goofy looking. They're not very straight grained. Some of them have pith in them. I've tried to mill that out as best I can. But again, this is a shop project. I'm using up scraps. Can't get lumber anyways, so now the roads are closed today with windstorm and snowstorm. So I'm going to get these all set up. There's going to be a bit of a process. I'm going to, once they're all finger jointed, I'm going to just lightly hit them over on the joiner. When that's done, I'm going to lightly put them through the thickness planer to get them all nice and even. And then they're going to have a final sizing at the table saw. And I'm going to put a little bit of a chamfer on it at the table saw as well, just on the nip of the edge here, at about a 10-degree angle, just so that things don't catch on it. It's not a sharp edge, and especially over here, where stuff comes off the table saw, it'll have just a little bit of a slope. So if it has a bit of a curve in it, it'll hit that and hopefully ride up onto the table. So let me work away at that, and I'll give you some updates. Hey, good morning, YouTube. Time to get working on this project again. So I've started milling up all the edging. Again, this is at some figure jointed oak there. So it's turned out okay. A little bit of a gap. I gotta learn some better technique on that stuff, but it works, and it is going to work really good. On this edge, I'm just going to tack it in place with a couple little brad nails. Once I get it in where I want it and at the right height, and it's not going to move a lot, I'm going to basically drill and put some small screws countersunk in here to keep it in place. This is the side that goes with the table saw. I don't know if you can see it, but I really carefully milled one edge at 90, and then I put it through the table saw at about a 6 or 7 degree angle, and just the leading edge has ever so slight of an angle down. And what that's going to do is, if for some reason I'm running stuff off the table saw and it has a little bit of a down lip, hopefully it'll catch that and be able to ride up rather than getting stuck on that lip. So the table itself is about, 3/16 of an inch lower than the tabletop of the saw, and then this will have a little bit of a lip. So hopefully anything that might catch and jam up a little bit is going to hit this right up, and it's going to be fine. That's the way I've did the other table. Now I'm going to try it on this one. It worked good so far, and I'm really loving this big table, so I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Catch you once I get a few things in place. Okay, that whole end has been pinned by about 3 or 4 pin nails, just a little 23 gauge. Works really good. But I had to hold this end up while I was doing that side. So all I did was I just took a little bit of painter's tape, wrapped around the other edge, kind of pulled it up, and just held it here so it was just about right. The nice thing about the painter's tape is I had to adjust that end, moving this way. This was flexible enough that I could get that end perfectly flush, and then this was still holding, and it's holding nicely. Again, you can see it's just down a little bit, but all it takes is a little bit of a finger, and it's flush with the top. So that worked out quite well. And then any major differences, I can just sand it flush, and then it's good to go. But if you have to hold something in place just a little bit, and you've only one of you, and you don't have enough hands, a little bit of painter's tape, looped over top, long enough piece here that it's going to hold. So worked good for me. Okay, it's all in place now. The strip is nicely seated. Everything's reasonably flush, nothing a little bit of sanding or a little nudge won't cure. Once I have that all done, I'm going to secure all this down with a couple screws, make sure this is flush. And before that, I drew a line underneath the bottom of this because it's hanging over by a little bit. So I'm going to cut that down with the track saw, make sure I get a nice sort of clean edge on that. And then once that's done, then I'll put it back and get it all done. Hopefully by the end of today, I will be able to start finishing the top. So I'll have all the edges on. Top will be give first coat on the top. I'm going to just use a water-based polyurethane. Give it all a bit of a light cleaning, a little bit of a light sanding with some maybe 220 just to knock down anything crazy, and then about, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 coats of that stuff. That'll give it a nice hard finish. Then maybe a little bit of wax, and that should be able to resist just about everything. I thought about shellac. I have the polyurethane on hand. This is a, you know, kind of use what you got type of situation here. So I'm going to work away on that. I have some ideas for this here. I think I'm just going to use a piece of hardboard with some wooden runners on the side of it so that I can have everything sitting up off of this and not getting caught in there. But I could still put stuff underneath if I needed to. Don't know why I would, but it'll just make getting the tracks and everything and these little fences underneath much easier. Alright, I made some good progress. I changed out the blade in my track saw. There's just a tiny little lip here. Rather than trying to recut it and hope it's right and other stuff. And I gotta say this, I got one of the new track saw blades from DeWalt for their cordless model. It cuts nice, you know. It's not perfect. The old one is thicker, so the original one is definitely thicker, but the new one cuts nice. So I have the entire edge here. It's going to be routed out, and there's just a hint over here as well. This was a little twisted, twisted in, so I had to pull it out. Couldn't get this edge, and who knows if I actually really did cut it square the first time. So this will be routed to this side, and then I'll start getting the trim on. Once the trim is on, then, well, darn it, it's going to be time for finishing. All right, perfect. All cleaned up. I don't know if you can see, but this is a nice, beautiful edge here. Much cleaner than what the track saw, but again, the track saw isn't bad. So, looking great. I am going to not put the edging on, mainly because I went to my buckets of screws and I need 1-inch screws. I don't have any 1-inch screws. I'm all out. I used the last few on that one. I thought I had another package, but time to go to the store, and I'm not going to drive for an hour for one package of screws. So I have to pick that up another day. I'll finish the top up, get that done, and actually it's good because then I won't actually accidentally glue it to this one. If I do need to replace the top, I should be able to just flip it over. I'm going to leave the 3mm holes. I'm going to drill a full field of those and only put in dog holes where I need them because I don't want stuff falling through. Nothing's going to fall through the little 3mm holes. I should be able to flip it up this way. That way the field of holes will all be good. And use it one more time. If I really need to, you know, replace this, I could screw 2 sheets together and just router out around the edge. So that should be good, I hope. Anyways, let me get to the first coat of paint. I'm going to sand it, give it a nice little wipe down, and then give it a coat of the poly and see what happens. All right, so everything's screwed down, everything's locked down, and I got my first coat of poly on it. Looking good. That part is where I started, and that's almost dry, so probably in an hour or two I should be able to get a second coat on it. The oak here on that side, grain was raised up pretty good, so I'll have to give that a sand. I'll probably do 2 really thin coats first, then I'll sand, get it smooth again, and do a few more over top of that. I think I can probably get a coat every couple hours. So between today and tomorrow, I should be able to get 3 to 4 coats on for sure. Maybe more. I don't know if I'm going to need more than that. I did a test strip over here on another piece of MDF, and it turned out beautiful. It's nice and smooth. I hit it with a little bit of wax. It feels like you could skate on this in your socks. So I think this is going to be more than adequate for what I need. And again, I always like using water-based stuff. The shellac just seemed, I don't know, seemed like it was too stinky. And this is going to do just as good. I'll catch up when I get a better coat on it and some screws. Okay, This is either my final coat or almost final coat, but I've given it 2 light coats yesterday, a medium coat, and this one's a bit of a heavier coat. I have made sure that I get a good bit of the urethane on there. I do notice with the previous coats it would actually darken up quite a bit, meaning that I think some of the water was soaking in below. When I get to these coats, after a few light ones, I find that doesn't seem to happen as much. It's blocking, being a barrier. When I checked before I did this final coat, the top was really slick. It was actually slicker than the melamine particle board that I typically use. So I'm really happy with how this is turning out. I'll see how this dries in a few hours. It is a bit of a thicker coat. I'm going to get a good time to cure and dry and that sort of thing. Probably 24 hours or more. And then see how it feels. If it feels good, I might just buff it with a little bit of steel wool. If I'm thinking I'm going to be crazy, I'll give it a nice sanding, one last final sort of cleanup, make it butter smooth, and then a final coat. I'll decide as I go along. But this is turned out really good. And water-based polyurethane, easy to put on, easy to clean up, not nearly as stinky as some of the other stuff. So it's definitely an option for covering the top of your bench. Good evening, everybody. Great progress. It's taken me a few days and a little bit of work, but I have to say that this edging turned out really good. The little finger joining secret to this was getting a little bit of the sawdust as you sand it, tucking it down into that, and as you finish it, it seems to finish off the joint. I actually kind of like the look that it sticks out a little bit. All the edging's on. I've got it hit with a few coats of poly as well, so this is nice and smooth. The top is butter smooth. I love it. And I'm going to use it for the first time to do some cutting to finish this off. I have worked through a bunch of different ideas. I think what I'm going to do is just get some hardboard, put it in here. I got a saw and just cut the edges off here a little bit. That's going to clean it up a little bit nicely. At some point in time I may edge this off with some strips of oak, but I'm not sure yet. For right now I just need to get it so I can slide things into each of those sections, so I'm going to get onto it, use this thing as an outfeed table, and cut some sheet goods. And phase 2 is done on the table. So I got some hardboard. I had some white 1/8 inch stuff sitting around, a little bit more than 2 inches. I just pinned it in with some finish nails just at the edge here so that it doesn't slide back and forth as I put stuff in. Both tracks sit here nicely. This is my shorter track, hopefully for nice accurate cuts. This is just for my rough track for hacking stuff up. The previous owner did a number on it, cut it and smooshed it up a lot, but that's okay. It still works good. I love it. It's working great. Storage is good. I can put my tools and stuff in here while I'm using them rather than having the top all mucked up. Each bay works great. The side bays, perfect location. Hope this helps you maybe inspire to make a little bit better outfeed table for yourself. Next thing is to put all the holes and stuff in on the top, and that's going to make a heck of a mess. I don't have the energy for that, so I'm going to leave off right now. Get out there, hack up some wood, make something good for your shop or your house. Have a great evening.